Today's guest conversation is with a former outfielder first baseman for the Texas Rangers, Mr. Jason Botts. Here's episode 55 of the Baseball Forward podcast. Mr. Jason Botts, hello, sir. How are you today?
Good. I'm doing great. Thankful to be here. Thankful. Can we just talk about how great that Chad Durbin interview was?
Yeah, it was a good one, wasn't it?
Can we skip anything about me and just talk about how awesome that pitching aspects and the stuff that he brought? It was incredible.
Hey, dude, that's why I'm excited because, listen, the most feedback that I get on the Baseball Forward podcast is when former players or coaches are giving tips and tricks and my goodness, man, you played 4 seasons at the major league level. And let me start off by saying this. I love what I see on Facebook. I love seeing how active you are with your boys, dude. It puts a smile on my face all the time. Always out hitting fungos, throwing to these guys, doing your thing. So let's start here. You're a dad. You're a dad.
Yeah, that's what you gave the title of former major leaguer, and I played 15 seasons of pro ball all over this country or all over the country and all over the world.
Yeah.
And but right now I'm a baseball dad.
Wow.
I'm listening to Chad Durbin talk, and so both the kids pitch, and I'm a lot of this stuff is lining up personally with what I feel goes into pitching development, even though I'm not experienced with that. But
Yeah.
I understand a lot about the development process, having to go through it and having a bunch of friends, obviously, and teammates that went through it. And so my ears are more turned on towards that stuff than anything else when it comes to baseball these days.
That's amazing to hear, Jason, because it's I know this. The older I've gotten in the game, the more I've just wanted to become a learner. And it feels weird saying that out loud because when you're playing, man, you have, and I was probably the standard. I had a lot of pride, ego. Probably didn't want to raise my hand and ask for help. Maybe thought I looked stupid, didn't feel comfortable with it. And the older I get, the more I realize, man, we're a community and guys want to help. And I want to help the younger generation however I can. Do you feel that way? Like the older you've gotten, the more you've, kind of started to rely on the resources that are available to you?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, especially when it comes to having kids that play kind of different positions, whether it's pitching, whether one right now really wants to be a catcher, nothing about catcher. I can watch stuff and I go, that looks right.
Yeah.
That doesn't look right. Right. But sometimes switching that doesn't look right to making it look right, I'm not really sure about. And so fortunately I got some friends where there's a lot of channels. So that's one of the things that I do now. I really enjoy writing. And one of the aspects, I'll share our stories, what we're going through, the lessons that we're learning or stuff that I learned from during my own career. But one of the things that I'm really kind of passionate about is taking some of the smaller channels on YouTube that I come across and I go, wait a minute, this lines up, and having a place where I could share other people or share podcasts and whatever it is and be like, hey, as a former player, these are some of the points that are being made that really line up with my experience. And I think this is stuff that I try to do with the boys, or this might be something I want to implement with the boys. And maybe add some bits and pieces. Cause after I retired, I did 7 years of, I created a mental coaching mindset business.
Love that.
And did that for a really long time. And then it just kind of got into conflict with doing a lot of calls in the evening, and the boys are getting older. And I wanted to spend more time with them and play with them or teach them. And so I kind of backed off that while, but that was a huge aspect of my focus since I was 15 years old, was the mindset, mental performance.
Interesting.
Reading, going outside of baseball and studying other disciplines like yoga, martial arts, excuse me, and seeing okay, what works when I'm holding the bat and standing in the batter's box?
Yeah.
Is there something I could borrow from another discipline or another art that will make me more consistent as a hitter? So that's been a huge passion of mine my whole life. And when I come across that stuff, I like to write about it and share it on my my Substack place. So,
well, I want you to know, with Baseball Forward, talking with Jason Botts, former Texas Ranger, on the Baseball Forward podcast, your stuff is welcome anytime. Anytime you want to share your stuff, because that's what this is all about, elevating the next generation of ball players and coaches, and we're here to help. And man, what better to have than someone has been in the fire, and then someone open to learning and teaching and growing.
And I think that brings up a couple of good points. Now you're going to get me talking.
Let's go.
First big time opening to learning. Like I have a lot of old school ways about me, but I am always like, anything that's new that's popping up, like I will dive into it and I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
And I'll take the bits and pieces that I think, you know what, I think this lines up. I think this is beneficial. I think this is helpful. One of the reasons why I wanted to do the writing, like I'm not a big video guy. Like, I don't know, like you see me, I'm sweating all over the place. Like I get a little anxious talking on video.
I don't see the sweat.
I love to write, because with writing, like I could write something and I can go back and go, wait a minute, I can explain that better. Right. So that's personally one of the reasons why I love to write, is I get a little, I can reset.
Were you a writer? Were you a writer in your playing career? Like, would you write down at bats, feelings, emotions, all that stuff?
Absolutely. Like huge performance journal. I've journaled every day since I was probably 15 years old. Like,
really?
Yeah. When I was in college, like I was really beginning to like believe in myself as a writer. I was doing well in a lot of different writing classes. And I've written in a journal, and like for the last 4 years, like every day on the computer, like even if I'm just writing a diary entry and it's like, I've got nothing to write about, like just, it's like grinding out swings in the cage every single day.
Interesting.
And eventually it's gotten to a place where, and that's the same thing, like I read a lot, and I'm reading not only for information, but I'm reading to see how they're explaining things. Like, how are they bringing humor to things? Like, kind of taking a step back from the writing and seeing how actually the writers are writing to convey a message. But the one really big point I wanted to make was, and I think if we got a lot of families listening to this too, like one of the biggest issues, I have a couple of issues with the game today. And when it comes to youth baseball development, which when I was coming up, that wasn't even a created title yet. It was just, child development is basically what we were looking for with our kids playing baseball. And today, like it is businesses or, it's private individuals. It's the people who are the best marketers, the best online gurus, who have the loudest and biggest voice in baseball. And that kind of bothers me. So when I'm not, hopefully I can build to that level as well too, but with the site and when I'm sharing my stories or I'm trying to share, like I come across so many I'm a YouTube guy. Like I stay up late all night. I'm watching, trying to learn, trying to find new things, but I'll come across smaller channels and I'm like, this stuff is really, really good. But they have 2,500 subscribers, and here's this other one over here with 350,000.
Yep.
Like people that come across like, oh, the 350,000 must be better. Well, sometimes it's the case, definitely not always. So
man, that's a really good point.
With trying to find a place in this game and being a baseball dad and wanting to play with my kids all the time and wanting, still kind of taking a step back, like, hey, this is their journey. I'm not 100% sure if like they really want to pursue this into college. They say they do, but things can always change. So I'm going to stay a little detached with it. But at the very least, and that's where the videos come in, is like, man, we play pepper, we do flips, we go hitting the cage all the time, but it's like hanging out with dad.
Yeah.
There's not like a ton of instruction. Like it's very, just trying to have fun with it. Like I'm the one that's like in the middle of having a 15 and 13-year-old going like, man, time's almost up.
No kidding.
Like I've had buddies that, when their kids are about to be seniors in high school, tell me like, hey, like really appreciate this time. And like, that's what I've been doing.
So that is really, man, I want to go back to the journaling thing too, because you make a really, let me say this first, based on all that, man, you hit the nail on the head and said, it's the guys kind of with the loudest voices and the popularity type thing. I recognize that too, and it bothered me because I don't want to say no, I will say I'm like old school, but to me, what old school is it's like a complete respect and
Yeah.
reverence for the game of baseball. Like, and I loved the way my generation played baseball. I love the way the generation before us played baseball. And so when I say old school, like you nailed it. And it's like I want my boys, I have a 10 and 11-year-old. I want them to, I'm hoping, obviously things change, but I'm hoping that they know the game maybe the way we knew the game, because I feel like there was like this level of respect and reverence that maybe has escaped us a bit. When I say that
Yeah.
to you, Jason Botts, what comes to mind, man?
I mean, I absolutely agree. And I absolutely understand that things evolve and change, and so much about baseball mirrors culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Wow.
we could talk about some of the old school ways, and um, the world is a different place than it was in the 50s, coming out of World
Mhm.
War II, and like a lot of the mentality and the way the guys play the game. Or if you go back even further, like a lot of the rules or the unwritten rules or the professionalism, ball players 150 years ago were like they're down here, like
Yeah.
in society. They were immigrants or children of immigrants. They
Mm.
were minors. Like, this is a whole different
Wow.
landscape of America, right? So like, owners, in order to create a business of having a professional team and having people who actually had money come sit in the stands, like, they had to clean up, the way that some of these guys acted
Yeah.
on the. They had to professionalize them a little bit. So, like, we live in a completely different world in that now, and so maybe there's a little bit more flair and a little bit more entertainment, and I get that.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that really kind of hit me hard when I was thinking about this stuff was, it was last summer, and one of the boys wanted to get a sliding mitt,
Oh,
and I was like, for a while, I was kind of like, man, you don't need that stuff. Like, when Dad played, he didn't need it, and so
yeah.
we're actually in Dick's Sporting Goods store, and I'm like, it dawns on me. I was like, I remember being like, growing up, like being starting Little League probably in the late 80s, and like getting razzed all the time by my coaches, who are mostly dads. One had a little bit of a pro career, and they're teasing me about why I needed to wear batting gloves.
Mm.
And then, so I thought about it a little bit more, and I'm like, their generation was probably razzed for wearing batting helmets,
Good point.
right? Like, the generation before that was probably razzed for wearing a glove on their hand to
Yep.
catch the ball. Right. So the game always evolves. We try to protect ourselves a little bit more. And so I thought about that. I'm like, you know what? Like, I've actually had uh, teammates who've had really nasty injuries, like
Yeah.
diving into a bag, and like, you see a thumb go in one direction or something
Yep.
else tears. And I'm like, all right, let's go ahead. We'll try out the sliding mitt. Then I almost had a panic attack because I was trying to figure out, do you get a right one or a left one?
I
And like,
don't know. What do you
we're going
get?
through all these scenarios. Like, we're sitting in the aisle going through the scenarios of like, do you die? Like, you die back right-handed to the bag, and then okay, maybe you try a hook slide at third, but what happened? Like, there's got to be like a double way. I don't know. I've seen some guys starting to do that, and I think it looks weird, but it's smart. But the one thing, and so last couple of years I've been coaching. This is the first year where I was like, I'm not going to coach anymore
Okay.
because I just completely want to be dad. I'm so
Yeah.
much happier. I get a chance to write more and all this other stuff. So it's serving us as a family better by me not coaching. But um, on the 14U team that we had last year, probably half the kids had the sliding mitts, and obviously at the youth level, you don't have much time between pitches. Like,
That's a
20
problem.
there's not a 20-second pitch clock. 20
That's
seconds
right.
would be a gift. It would be no problem. 15, whatever it is. But you got like 8. So like, we would actually spend like the first like 5-10 minutes for a couple practices, like having them like pretend to get a walk and like do the whole process
Wow.
as they go through the line,
That
so
is
that when they got the
awesome.
back, because you only have 3 seconds like
Yes.
really to get a sign
Yep.
and then get your lead at
Yep.
youth level. So um,
There's a place. So what you're saying, Jason Botts, is there's a place for the flair in the game, which I agree. And you know what I was going to say about the oven mitt thing is, um, uh, I help coach a team, and the head coach is a former. He had a long pro career too, and uh, he says no to the oven mitts. And if he's like, I have no problem with it, but here's what I would say to it is it say, as long as it doesn't get you picked off because you're so worried about we're putting it on and everything, what's the problem? Or you got that first base coach over there looking like he's a used product salesman, baseball product salesman over there at first base, which is wearing crap all over.
Crap. And like I don't mind that too much. Like I think back to our days, like even when we were playing, like we had guys with the shit, because I was a shin guard guy too later in my career, and you got I don't want to put the batting gloves in my back pocket.
Yeah,
that was actually something I instituted too with our kids. Like they would hand me their batting gloves, and then I would put them in their back pocket. Like they're expecting me to hold it, but I would just like shove it in their back pocket before they got to late. And I'm like, you know why guys do like hand it to their coach? Because they're playing in 100-degree heat and humidity. Like we're here in Colorado, like it's not that hot. Your pants are not soaked. Like my pants would be soaked during the game. Like I'm not putting my batting gloves in my back pocket because then they're useless for the next at bat.
Interesting.
Like I would hand them to the coach, like with my kid. Like
we're in that dry climate in Colorado.
Yeah, different situation. So yeah, like but as you mentioned, because I absolutely have that visual of like how many kids are like, in 14, you're usually pretty aggressive. Like you either have a kid behind the plate that can throw the ball to second or not throw the ball second. At least in our region, like most of them aren't really going to throw down. Pitchers are slow to play. Like first pitch, we're usually going. And it's like, how many kids do we have that are like, it's the sliding mid is like hanging half on and like dangling as they're like taking second base. So
I'll talk. We'll move forward with the game and I'll accept some of those things. I kind of miss some of the old ways. I want to go to the journaling here real quick because I think for baseball players out there that are listening to this, boy, a lot of guys I've talked to in the past, I wasn't one of them. So maybe I was a brick and maybe that's why my career ended the way it did. But I didn't journal. I didn't understand the purpose of it maybe. But as I look back and have conversations with some of the guys that I played with that maybe were successful, that seemed to have a nice balanced perspective on life in the game. A lot of those guys journal. So one, I'm curious, how did you get into that? Like someone introduced it to you. And then like two is what for Jason Botts as a baseball player, what was the purpose of journaling?
So I think I mentioned 15 is when I started. I would probably say not until 18 did it like really actually become like this religious, like daily ritual.
Okay.
And I'll tell you the moment, like I'm 18, like I had to go 3 hours away to junior college. My first time away at home, like I was this, like I saw I was really kind of a late bloomer, but by 18, like things were kicking on. And so there was a lot of expectations. And I'm in this I come from a small town and I'm in like this part of LA and like just the pressures and everything. And like, I have one of those days in practice where like, I literally like start crying. Like it was like, I felt so overwhelmed and so stressed out and I felt so much pressure, everything. Unfortunately, the head junior college coach who only had for that 1 year, like he was smart enough to like not give me a hard time, just kind of put my arm. He's like, hey, I want you to leave practice, get out like one of your school notebooks and just like start writing everything that you're feeling. Like, don't think about anything. Like, just don't make it pretty. Don't make it cute. Don't even make it readable. Just like start writing your heart out. And I remember driving somewhere out in the middle of Glendale, California, like finding like an empty park, an empty little league ball field, and just started like putting everything in. Like, and I felt like the greatest relief.
Wow.
Like at that point in my life I'd ever experienced. And so like that became a daily thing. And so there's, you asked me about a journal, and for me, like there's multiple aspects of journaling. Like one, there's that, and I still do that almost every single morning, of where like I don't think, I just like start writing, and for me it's the source of my creativity. Whether I'm making funny videos, whether I'm doing the writing, or I'm just like, life has been really challenging the last year for me and my family. And like, there's been plenty of fear, tons of anxiety, tons of stress. And like every morning I'm just trying to dump it out get it out of my body, out of my stomach,
wow.
and like put it on the pages. From a baseball perspective, there's some similarities with that. I would keep that kind of notebook of, especially as I got older, like really detailed about pitches, what I'm feeling in my swing, what's working, what's not working, kind of like that, what we kind of hear more traditionally when it comes to the journaling stuff. You hear, I grew up listening to like guys like Tony Gwynn and, some other really elite hitters in the big leagues. And they talk about, keep tracking pitches and journals and stuff that they're doing with their swing. And so there was an aspect of that. And then what I always try to do was close the day. And I always did this before I got out of my uniform and went to go take a shower or go eat. Like I would try to write down as many positives from that game.
Love it.
And there were plenty of days where I was 0 for 4 with 3 punch outs. And maybe like I make a joke and I would write this stuff out and it would kind of give me a little bit of relief too. It's like, you tied your shoes correctly, right? Like I wore the right uniform to the game that day. Like, I was a switch hitter and like, I went up to the right side of the plate, like every at bat, like, and just kind of make a joke. Cause there were plenty of days where like, man, I can't find a positive.
Yeah.
Not to make it too long, but as I did evolve in a couple of the best years I did have, and this is something I taught from a mental performance perspective, was I would start breaking down at bats, not by the at bat, but by each pitch. So like if I took an 0-0 sinker at the knees, like being a big power hitter, like there's no reason for me to swing at that pitch. Like give him the strike. I don't want to roll it on the ground, right? That's a positive.
Wow. Okay, right? Good. Yep.
So now all of a sudden, now it's 0-1 and he tries to like throw in a changeup there or something. And I just goes out of the zone. It's a ball. Boom. That's a positive.
Yep.
All right. Now I get a fastball down the middle and I pop it up. All right. Well, something needed to be adjusted there, but that's like, as far as that at bat, I was successful 2 out of 3 pitches.
Yes.
And like, that was how, as I got towards the second half of my career, like that was how I viewed my days. Like we have the quality of bat, kind of methodology that gets passed around a lot. And that's good. But I try to break it down by pitches and say like, hey, if I'm present, ready to hit and being successful 80% of the time on the pitches, like I know that that's going to lead to quality bats, if that makes sense. So
it makes total sense.
Because there'd be plenty of times too where you swing at 2 curveballs in the dirt, the first 2 pitches, and then the pitcher hangs a curveball, the third one, and you blast it off the wall.
Yep.
Like, okay, great. Like quality of bat, extra base, like all good things, but like you were actually in that at bat, you were 1 out of 3 pitches ready to be hit.
Yep.
Or ready to hit. So I don't know. For me, that really helped me. And I've worked with a few hitters over the years where like kind of pass that on and they seem to, get into it as well too.
Talking with Jason Botts here on the Baseball Forward podcast today. Jason, I love hearing stuff like that because as a dad and as I used to coach as well at the high school level, and the game is so freaking hard and it's frustrating. And one thing that you always hear cliche coaches talk about, and I remember hearing my dad say it. My dad, amazing guy, but you hear guys saying, trust the process. So when I hear you say what you just said, the process is understanding understanding how you grade yourself and grading yourself fairly, not on results, but on what your plan was. Did you execute your plan right? So when I say that to you, is it like when trust the process, as a former, big league hitter, does that resonate with you?
It does. And it is so hard to do.
Yeah. Ugh.
And like I think like we talk about hitting being hard, with pitching's hard, like the game is hard. Like, and so I think the one thing, the best thing, whether I shifted out of this like mental coach, I shifted out from being a player, I shifted into being a mental coach. I shifted out of that to be a youth coach to some extent, like so 3 or 4 years coaching on the field, coaching the boys, and that's always been my number one thing is like, hey, this is really hard.
Yeah,
this takes like if one of the jokes is like kids will take a couple of good swings, and I'm like, hey, you do that another 10,000 times, and you might be good. Like, right, like. We put so much I hate labeling kids that are 10 or 12 like, oh, he's a really good player. He's a really great player. Like, well, no, like if they're really into the game, like they're going to want to play at a high level, whether it's varsity baseball, whether it's like college, maybe in pro ball or something. It's like what we have to go from here to there is so much. Oh. So like, we don't need to be putting the pressure, the expectations on, day to day here. But, that's just been the ability to have self-compassion, I think is, in fact, when I was doing the mental coaching, I would say that confidence is overrated.
Wow.
That it's nice to feel confident, but like, don't ever have that be the aim. I think I had wrote out that like courage and self-compassion were one, like I think for me, they're the building blocks to get to being really confident as a hitter, but like they're much more valuable. Like I can't even begin to explain like how many at bats like I walked into going like,
like, gosh, I feel that, dude.
Like I don't feel like my swing is locked in right now. Yep. I don't feel like I can see the ball very well right now. But like you said, it's like maybe this is where it ties into the process. Like, okay, I'm gonna be courageous and put those thoughts to the side and focus on these little things that I know I can control. And if I screw it up, like I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna forgive myself and I'm gonna move on to the next thing. And I know if I keep doing that over time, like things are gonna work out. And maybe I have a larger percentage of confident feelings, or or maybe we change what feeling confident means to us.
Yeah.
One of the things that I share with the boys is like from the ages of 15 is when I kind of really made the decision, like, hey, I want to go for this. Like,
okay,
I think I could do it.
Okay.
And from that point to the 10 years later or 9 years later, when I actually played my first major league game, like, I don't know if there was a single day where I was like, I feel really good. Like, I'm going to do this. It was always like, I'm going to figure this thing out. Like, I'm going to get there. Like, I don't even know how it's going to happen. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but this is the vision. This is the end goal. Like, I'm going to find a way to get there. And there was never one single day where I was like, I'm going to be like, I totally got this in the bag.
Wow.
Like, I'm really good. But it was just like showing up, putting in the work that I knew to do. And I mean, I don't know, maybe that's a different angle of explaining like trusting the process, but yeah, like the game's really tough and it takes a really, really long time. Like, I don't even think I knew myself as a hitter or knew how to be really consistent as a hitter, even though I had been consistent for a long time. Like 28 years old, maybe 29, maybe even 30. Like, that was when I felt like I really understood like what I needed to do to be a hitter, or I understood hitting it in some general level. Like,
and that ties to self-compassion. Like, that's so intuitive, or like observant of how you're feeling about it, because like, just think about that. The young players that are going to listen to this, there's a guy that made it to the big leagues. There's nowhere else to go, guys.
Yeah.
You get to the big leagues, there's nowhere else to go. It's the top of the top. Whether you're there 4 years, 10 years, 1 year, 1 at bat, 10 at bat, it doesn't matter. It's the top. And you hear this Jason Botts, who did it for 4 years at that level. I don't know that I ever felt when I hear that, I hear it's so it's refreshing because it's honest.
Yeah, and to maybe take it from a youth perspective in a different way of looking at it too. So like, I'll talk about this with the boys all the time, or the kids that I get to know, here locally in the Valley. It's like, I kind of always encourage them, like, there was a great thing I heard by Tony Robbins one time, and he said something along the lines of like, people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but underestimate what they can do in a decade.
Wow.
And so we always, and I was guilty of this when I was growing up too, like making these like really like huge monster goals for the next year or something. And especially when you're young, like you don't really know what exactly you need to do. Like you're in such a huge trial and error phase. Like someone who's like at the college level and they've, they hit 280 their freshman year and they're 19, 20 years old, like they could probably formulate a plan, a step-by-step process to hit 320 or 330 the next year, right?
Sure, makes sense.
But if you're 15, and certainly not if you're like 11, 12 years old and like you're not even at puberty yet, right? Like, and that's the wild card, right? That's going to kick in where like you're at 1 year and we don't know when it's going to happen. Like you're going to be a completely different player. And so like, it's hard to like anticipate like, okay, where do I want to be in a year? Like, so what I've always done is always talked about like, hey, let's set goals for like 3 years or 5 years. And so that like what we're doing today or what we're doing this next spring, like we're going to show up, we're going to do the work, we're going to really be creative with how to have fun in this game.
Okay.
To play baseball at a high level, those are the guys for the most part that really know how to have fun even when they suck.
That's right.
Like that is such a huge key of having a long and successful career in this game is like, can you still feel good after you just took your third 0 for 4 in 3 nights? Right? Like, can you be excited to go back to the park the next day? And like, one, try to figure this thing out, but two, like, you're just happy to be there.
Yeah.
There's no other place you want to be, right? Like, I'm going to go and do my best. But so I always encourage like setting goals for, like, I like creating visions. Like, what kind of player do you want to become? Like, how do you want to look? How do you want to move? These types of things, but then like put in the work, but don't like have it be like this day-to-day grind of did I get better or not? Like there's going to be plenty of times where like you go down and you hit your plateaus or you dip a little bit as you're learning and trying out new things. And like, I guess what I see on the social media stuff that drives me crazy is like this obsession with the PR type stuff, whether it's with the velocity, whether it's with the hitting stuff. It's just like, I wouldn't want that on my boys, like to get into the mentality of like trying to be better than they've ever been every single day. And like it's just a lot of pressure to that. And I don't think it's a very positive thing. Like we have to sometimes take detours in development to build a really good foundation or build a range of abilities. One of my biggest beliefs is that like, and why I think a lot of former players today are kind of looking at different levels and be like, they throw harder, they hit the ball harder, their swings look a lot better, but like they're really not the same quality of all-around player. And I think that's because we've now created, and through business models and stuff, is like we've created players who have been trained on resources and skipped the resourcefulness stage.
Yep.
Where like, and that's why like we're playing pepper all the time.
Lab rats. They're like lab rats.
Yeah, we're playing pepper. We're playing flips. We play around the horn all the time. When they're hitting, when I hit with the boys, like I honest to goodness, I mean this. They're 15 and 13. I think I've talked mechanics with them like 2 or 3 times.
Wow.
When I'm throwing and they say like, what am I doing wrong? My response is like, figure it out.
Wow.
Like I had to figure it out. One of the reasons why I was so successful in so many different countries, in so many different pitching styles was like, I had the ability to like make adjustments. Like making adjustments isn't just like doing this with my barrel, right? Like I got it. Like I'm under the ball and like, what do I need to change my emotions? What do I need to change my thought? What's the approach? Like, what the contact, like there's a million different things going on at any moment that you have 8 seconds between pitches to figure out. Like, and a lot of that was just like, I felt like I was really good at that because I grew up without hitting instructors, without travel ball teams, like throwing the ball up in the air and hitting off a wiffle balls in the backyard, off of, the side of our fence, hitting leaves off bushes, like, and just like being really creative. I think creative is like kind of like a precursor to the ability to make adjustments. have an imagination. And like, I feel like that served me so well at the end of my career, like during my professional career. And the guys that I played with early in the minors that grew up in more like the academy type settings, because that stuff was around like in LA and bigger parts of the country too. Like they didn't seem to have the ability to adapt. They needed things to be a certain way.
Wow.
And I don't know. I felt like a lot of those guys got flushed out early on, and it was guys like, and you get to know guys like you spend, 140 to 162 games, 8 hours a day around people. Like you get to know their backgrounds, you get to know their stories. Like the media obsession of like, kind of started with Tiger Woods, like the childhood prodigy. Then we get into the Williams sisters, and we have LeBron, and we have Bryce Harper, the chosen one on the cover of Sport. Like, Bryce Harper's path to stardom and being like just this freak of nature 12 and 13-year-old is beyond the exception to the rule. And I feel like because of social media, like we have convinced a huge part of the population that that's the way to the top.
Amen.
And it's not. And if anybody's been around the level of professional baseball, the highest rungs of the ladder, like the late bloomers, the ones who grinded it out, that's the way to the top.
Yep. The ones that absolutely love the game.
They love the
whatever
game,
it takes to keep playing it.
Like, and then, you pick up things like, and it's not to say that any of the resources are bad. From my perspective, it's just, when do we instill that? Like, when's the timing? And every kid's going to be a little bit different. Like, for me, I think it goes a little bit into what, Durbin was saying too, when he talked about the pitching stuff, is like, all right, we're going to teach the kid how to pitch and, spin the ball, and we're going to learn to change. Like, velocity doesn't matter. Like, we know that velocity to get into pro ball, we know but that could be many years down the road. And what happens when you add velocity after you have all this pitchability? You get guys at the very top of the major leagues that, like, now they can run it up at a high, when they want to, they can run up to a high level, but they have the command and they have the secondary pitches, and they have just this like guts to be able to go out there and get the job done too.
You talking with Jason Botts on the Baseball Forward podcast today, you talk about your ability to adjust, and I think that is just crucial. I had a coach tell me one time, Benny Castillo, 15 years pro ball, one of the best coaches. He coached in pro ball, and one of the best coaches I've ever been around. Dominican dude. Shout out to you, Benny. I'm sure if he's listening. But he said, when I was a freshman in college, don't be a dinosaur. And I'm like, what does he keep saying? Don't be a dinosaur to me. So finally, after practice, I say, Benny, why do you keep saying don't be a dinosaur? And he goes, Ross, what happened to the dinosaurs? And I'm like, they became extinct. And he goes, so are you if you don't learn how to adjust. He goes, the dinosaurs, and he was being funny, the dinosaurs died because they couldn't adjust to what happened to them. And he's like, don't be a dinosaur. And I was like, wow, that was a nice little way to say what you said, ability to adjust. And like, I want to put it on top of what you said about all the PRs and I'm not banging on these kids. The lab built player, they lack the ability to adjust because the resources for them to adjust are it's not the game. It's like a mechanical tweak. It's not like it's not a man. When I think of hitting, hey, as simple as this: did you get a good pitch to hit? I think I saw that with Clint Hurdle the other day. Was all these guys want to talk mechanics? Did you get a good pitch to hit? Can we start there? So ability to adjust. I want you to expand, if you can, on what that means to you.
Well, that's a harder question. I will say, though, when you're talking about the dinosaurs, you know who did survive during that time? Were crocodiles.
Yes.
Crocodiles have the ability to burrow into the mud for months at a time without food. They could actually drop their heart rate to less than 3 beats a minute.
Holy buckets.
Like,
I never knew that.
Yeah, they like that was their get. Like, and if you talk about now, like crocodiles are thriving all across the world.
Wow.
I think there's 23 different species. So by the way, my mental coaching was called Play Like a Beast.
That's
and
good.
Every lesson that I would talk about would be tied into some kind of like animal lesson.
Okay.
And so the crocodile was all about being successful and the ability to make adjustments, right? And, like they have eyelids that can drop down, like those murky rivers and stuff. They have these like super goggle lenses over their eyes and they can go and see through it. Like crocodiles are just the most amazing animals when it comes to like surviving anything. Like,
yep.
They are a species that's here to stay. Like even men encroaching on the ground, like they're finding a way to still flourish, right? What was the question? Like
here's what I want to know. When if you were teaching your boys or if we were just sitting down on a couple of buckets out on a baseball field and there were five young guys sitting around listening to Coach Botts talk about baseball, and someone said, Coach Botts, I heard ability to adjust on the Baseball Forward podcast. What does the ability to adjust mean to you?
I think I would say it is the ability. I want to say something along the lines about trial and error.
Yes.
And I want to say that as a young player, it is going to be incredibly difficult to make adjustments.
Wow.
Because you haven't made enough errors to know what works and what doesn't work. So if I'm hitting with the boys, and say like the last 2 weeks is a really good example. So my youngest son, he's 13, and he's not hitting to the level that he expects, and honestly the coaches expect, and even I expect, right? So he's a little frustrated. And so in years past, now he's 13. So in years past, like I'm just throwing in, it's meatball pitching he's facing in the games anyway. Like he's out there and he's being successful. But now, like, he's definitely like kind of like dipping below the ball, and like every once in a while he launches. Like he's like the Joey Gallo of 13U baseball right now. Like, and he's not a huge kid. He doesn't hit pure or anything, but like he has launched some baseballs like he's never launched. And that's probably part of the process too. And I've talked to him is like, so much of what our swing does is a result of what we're thinking.
Sure.
And what we're feeling. Like, and he's 13, like his word is swamp donkeys.
Swamp donkeys.
I want to hit swamp donkeys. And like, so we were doing like an outline one time on how to hit more swamp donkeys, right? and I was just really covering like the things we're talking about, like mental approach. What pitches do you think you can hit swamp donkeys on the best? Like, where does that pitch need to be located in order to do that, and just the timing of it, and like all this other stuff. So he started hitting a few swamp donkeys, but he's also like popping up a ton. He's completely like swinging, striking out way more than he ever should strike out. And so like that was one of the first things that we did like a week ago. I was like, I set the tee up really high for him, and I'm like, hit this ball either at the same level of the net or hit it a little bit down.
Okay.
And like, I'm not going to tell you a thing.
Yep. Wow.
And I want like you're going to sit there and take as many swings until you can put some type. You can produce the outcome, and then you could replicate the outcome. Right.
That's good.
And I'll do that a lot with them. Like, so that's if we're doing hitting, it's always stuff like that. Okay, here's the pitch down and in. I want you to be able to backspin it up the middle. Low line drive, like, okay, like, and we'll do stuff with high. Like, I'm not against them hitting the ball in the air at all. Like, but like, I'm always trying to give them a target and create an environment where like they have to trial and error and think for themselves on how to do it.
I love that.
And so I would say somewhere in it is trial and error, and you've got to make a bunch of errors to figure out what doesn't work and what might work in this situation, but then it doesn't work in this situation facing this type of pitcher, right? And so I think it's the presence of mind to know that there's going to be times when you're a hitter where it's like, I just need to stick with what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to go through a phase of trial and error and recognizing when you need to stick with what you're doing or when you need to make some kind of an adjustment, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
And then it becomes on like, okay, what adjustment needs to be made? One of the things that I think I've shared in the past too is like, it was actually more difficult to get out of slumps as I got older. As opposed to when I was young. And I don't really know if I was in slumps any longer. Like the process of mentally like trying to figure out what needed to be done was maybe more difficult because when you're 15, there's like one or two things that you know to try.
Yeah.
Then when you're 22, you know 10 to 12 different things that could be wrong.
Sure.
To get you back on track. Then you get to 34 years old and there's like 57 different things that you've learned through the past that like could be affecting your swing and why you're not getting hits right now, right? And some of the stuff's not even on the field. By the time you're 30, in your 30s, like you might have like a long-term relationship, you might have kids, and like am I getting up too early and playing with the kid? Like there's just it could be anything and everything.
Yep.
And so I know I'm not giving a very succinct answer on this, but like it's just about trial and error, and it's about like finding what works in what situation, and
I think that's a beautiful answer, because I'm going to go back to what you said, self-compassion. That's what rings in my ears in my mind when I ask you the ability to adjust. You're not going to have much of an ability to adjust if you haven't failed a ton. So if you're failing, right?
And you're not going to have much of ability to adjust if you've been told most of your life on how to swing that stick.
Sure.
Like in Durbin, one of the things I loved about Durbin when he was talking about his relationship with his son and how he felt like maybe too many times he or the coaching community in general like gives the answers away.
Man, that's a good point.
We have absolutely done that with hitting.
Yes.
Especially like now where we get younger and younger kids into the batting cages, and you got them hooked up to machines or videos, and like you're like, this is what you're doing. Like we've been giving away the answers for a really long time, and I think it's really starting to show. And there was one other thing that came to my mind that I always really love to say, and I think it's important for parents. Like, so I had my career 5 years after retiring. Like I really I was going through that healing phase of losing an identity and all that stuff. Like boys and I didn't do much ball. Like I retired, like I didn't have to, like, but the boys were 5 and 3, and I wanted to be with them. Like I wanted to go to T-ball the next year and just watch my oldest son play. Like, and I probably could have hung on for a few more years and enjoyed playing the game and doing what I love. But I was like, no, I love these kids way more than that. So like, this is what I'm gonna do. But for 5 years, like it was Transformers and dinosaurs and like, Paw Patrol and all the other stuff that we used to watch. And then when they got to about 9 and 7 or 10 and 8, like they kind of took on their own interests. And so my original thought, and this was like the middle of COVID, and that's what I think kicked it on in terms of like giving us time to start playing around together and playing catch and doing all those things. And my initial driver, I guess you could say, was like, I want to teach them life through baseball. Like it's not really, baseball isn't about baseball. Like I want to spend time with them. I want them to learn the ways of life, because like I know baseball the best. I think I can explain to them how to be successful at anything by what I had to teach them when it comes to baseball, and like the art and the philosophy that I have for playing it. And that's how we started. Then they got a little bit more into it, and then that was when they started talking about like, hey, I want to be like daddy, or like I want to be a major leaguer, like I want to do all this other stuff. And so that my primary focus was always to instill in them these like really good like art and philosophy approaches to anything that I thought they could be successful in. But I knew somewhere down the road, like, okay, baseball might become about baseball to some point.
Sure.
And so one of the earliest things I also taught them too was, this is what I that whole long story was to get to this one line, but I always told them, do you want to be good at 12 or do you want to be great at 18?
That's right.
And like, those are two separate, completely different paths. So I can understand with people without a huge background, be it in baseball or in other sports, and you're seeing all the social media stuff, and we're seeing the rankings, and we're seeing the best teams, and they got the coolest swag, and it just, everything seems so good. It's like in those environments for youth play, 8, 10, 12, 13 years old, whatever it is, it's like, if everything is result based and wins based, like there is no way to there's no time for trial and error.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
And the other kind of like, I guess,
good point,
analogy or metaphor I use for it too is like, once you like fold a piece of paper over and you get that crease in there, like you can work on that crease a little bit, but that crease is going to stay there. And I feel like too often in development these days that we rush to create a result. We don't even realize the long-term ramifications of making that quick fix to like many years down the road. Wow. And so like, why not? Like, what would be the disadvantage of my kid having this phenomenal swing at 10 years old? Like, how is that going to catch up? Like, he's just going to keep getting better and better. Well, like, maybe, like, I'm not going to say that that's not the case, but like, you know, a 10-year-old with a great swing is not like, he's not getting out. He's not learning how to cope with failure. If the swing was taught to him, he didn't learn how to make any type of adjustments or improvements himself, which he's going to need in the end run. You know, he's not facing real pitching yet. Like, I don't care how hard a kid throws at 10 or 12 and with any kind of like other breaking ball, like it's different than you can do. The thing that drives me the craziest is the speed equivalency.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like I was seeing the video the other day of like a little 130 miles an hour. It's 31 miles an hour at 13 feet. It's a reaction time of 130. You have not tried to witness a ball moving at 100 miles an hour. Like the ability to process that blur and to know exactly where it's going to end up. Like, it's not about the reaction time. It's about literally knowing out there, like, where it's going to end up.
Yeah.
The craziest, most difficult thing. And so, like, the reaction time stuff just makes me laugh. And just, I know I'm talking about swings and what are the problems are to have, you know, really great swings when they're young. But, you know, to be a high level baseball player, like, you have to be an advanced problem solver.
Wow.
Like, that's how I see it. Like, the guys who are in the major leagues and who are sticking in the major leagues know how to solve the toughest problems.
Yes.
And if that's, you know, Skeens on the mound, or no, I guess no one's really, for the most part, ever solved Skeens on the mound. But if it's, you know, the big time, big league arms, the studs, like if you can solve the problem of how not to get out against those guys, like you stick around for a long time. Right? Pitchers, it's the same thing. Like if you can solve the problem on how to get this guy out, like you stick around for a long time. Right. And like that's so much above and beyond the physical attributes of being a ball player.
I want to know, Jason Botts, as we got about a couple more questions. I want to know, just selfishly, like fun talk, because man, there's a lot of there's some gold in what you're talking about. And but I'm curious, your eyeballs, the ones that are in your eye holes right now, your eyeballs, what's the best stuff your eyes have ever seen out on the mound when you're at the plate and you're like, oh my gosh, what is this? Who was it?
You know, we're at a tournament. I told you, we're at a tournament in Denver last weekend. And there's one guy like I've taken a real liking to. He played some JUCO ball. So we had like really great baseball conversations, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And like I'm really impressed on like how well he keeps up with just a lot of baseball stuff. So we're having these great conversations. And he asked me that question.
Okay.
And you know, there's not like any one guy, and I can name off guys like Felix Hernandez or Johan Santana, Roy Halladay. Like they're each one of those guys presented like a completely unique and different problem than the other ones. Like it was Halladay's cutter, right? Like he'd sit there and he'd paint his cutter inside, and I'd swing and miss, and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to take it next time it's coming inside. And then I take it, and then I'm going to do it again. And then boom, it's a four-seamer that starts exactly the same place, and now it stays over the plate, right? Like Felix Hernandez, like he's thumbing you, and then all of a sudden he'd 98 miles an hour, like front hip back over the plate. And then there was facing Maddox one game in spring training, 3 at-bats, and like the ball like was magical. Going beautiful. Everywhere. I actually got 2 hits and 3 at-bats, but I played 3 bats that day.
Let's go.
He shattered all my bats, and there's some other stories in there too. But Johan Santana, like he fools me on a changeup, and I'm dig in there, and I'm like, I'm not gonna get beat by a changeup. I'm not gonna get beat by a changeup. And he throws me another changeup that's even and just
how good was his changeup?
It was. Like that's what I'm saying. Like I think Trevor Hoffman, who had 1-2, right?
Yeah.
Those are the only 2 guys, and I only had a few bats off each of them, but those are the only 2 guys in my entire life where I dug in and said, I'm not getting beat by a changeup. Like
Wow.
I'm not getting fooled by a changeup. I might miss it. Still fooled by the changeup. But what I was telling this guy, and I think it's interesting and it's funny, is like those weren't the hardest guys for me to hit off of. Like those were some of the nastiest stuff I ever saw. But like they're like it's the completely for every hitter, it's always like it's the completely random guy who comes in from the bullpen in the 7th inning, right? And you just can't see the ball for whatever reasons. And it always works out where it's like the first 3 guys in front of you just have hit lasers off of him. You go up, you're out of there in like 3 or 4 pitches, just looking like an absolute fool. And then the next 2 or 3 guys behind you go and knock it off the wall too. And you're just like,
you're sitting on the bench like, what happened?
What's going on? Oh, you get like you could be 28 years old in pro ball and be like acting like a little bit like a baby, I guess, from time to time. Like, oh, why's everybody else hitting this guy? Like, you know?
Hey, now I want to know what it was like for you, because boy, you had a really cool experience, and from what I hear is transformative for a lot of American baseball players. You went and you played in Japan. What did playing in Japan mean for your career and for your baseball life in general?
Well, no, actually, how much time do we have?
Wait, let's wrap it up here in the next 5 minutes.
Okay. I'll tell you a little bit about Japan. Okay. First of all, Japan, it took me a while to adjust.
Okay.
Coming, down from the big leagues. And so I dug myself a hole going into there, and ended up just to finish that year. And I went back the next year and just really fell in love with their process and how they play the game. And they're almost like, they have such a unique philosophy in terms of living and how that applies to baseball.
Okay.
It is much more spiritual. It is so much more. It is all about the process. Like, it is about the work you put in, and then you go out and you play the game and you're a little bit of an entertainer for the fans, but it's like, it is about work and in terms of like practice and doing stuff. And I have incorporated so much of how they go into their training with my boys or with some of the kids I work with locally. And it's really counterintuitive to like what's going on in mainstream youth baseball development today. Like I wrote about the other day, like I'm a big, like in young players, quantity over quality.
Yes.
When I went over there, and so in Japan, you take 3-minute rounds. If you're the home team, you have 2 batting cage tunnels on the field. You hit for 3 minutes off a right-hander, and then you hit 3 minutes off a left-hander. In spring training, it's actually 5 and 5. So, like, if anybody knows, being a big guy and you're expected to hit balls out of the yard, they want you to hit balls. Like, the ability to learn how to sync up your swing, control your heart rate, take effortless swings that drive the ball, and the timing component of that and the effortlessness, like, it transformed me over 2 years. Like, wow. But at that point, like, my body was starting to break down. So when I came back, I wasn't necessarily a better power hitter if you look at numbers and stuff like that. But my understanding of hitting and my approach and like how to use my body was completely different. I just, back, hip, shoulder stuff, I just didn't quite have the same bat speed or power. But I'm like that with ground balls. Like we had a kid in the Valley that I'm really good friends with his dad, and he's struggling on defense. And like, I'm going to go hit him 500 ground balls on a rock hard dirt infield, terrible hops. And like, I don't want him to do the traditional, get in front of it and, the traditional setup to like block the ball if it hits you. Like, I want him just kind of like feeling with one hand, moving through the ball. Yeah. I'm going to make him so exhausted that his brain is going to be like, I need to do this as relaxed and with the least amount of movement and the least amount of energy use as possible. So he's sitting there sucking wind, and we're just still hitting ground balls because I want him to get the feeling of what it's like to move in ways with the least amount of energy, which for me is the most relaxed way. It's the most efficient way. It's going to be the best way to field ground balls. It's like that's how the Latins don't get there that way, but they field ground balls on terrible fields that the ball, if it's going to hop up, it's going to knock out their teeth. So like they learn to move through the ball. They learn to stay completely relaxed. that's how you adapt and, you know, get a bad hop and they fluidly move through it, as opposed to kind of being the more, you know, set up, get in front of it, hands out in front. Like, that's how you teach someone not to make an error.
Man, that is beautiful. Like,
Me,
that is so true. And it's like, well, hey, they're crocodiles. Like, they adapt, they adjust.
Well, the Dominican, like, especially if I played for months in the Dominican, like, they know how to adapt.
Yep. All right, Jason Botts, last question for you on the Baseball Forward podcast. Man, what a fun conversation with you. Music, man. I got to know this.
You know,
you walk up music. Did you have it? If you did, what was it? And then what kind of music do you listen to?
All right.
Mozart.
Sometimes. Walk Up. I've always, like, this was even before you know, the last set of Star Wars movies, but
yeah.
I was always really big on coming into the opening theme of Star Wars.
Yes.
You know, when the time I walked up to that, I would do Vader, the Death March every once in a while, but I really like the opening theme. Yeah. A lot of people confused it with Superman for some reason. They're completely different.
Okay.
So most of my minor league career, you know, when I was being Studley and I was, you know, the guy on the minor league team. When I got to the big leagues, I was like way too afraid, like, to go do something like that. So I think I had Master of Puppets for a little while. But, you know, like many people, I listened to a lot of different stuff, and I actually heard you ask those questions. And the one that I wanted to share, and I realized I turned my phone off, so I can't pull up the guy's name. There's like a Italian pianist.
Okay.
On Spotify. I can't even begin to pronounce his name.
I need to know who this
or
is.
something like that.
Okay.
So I'm also like really big into listening to music without lyrics. Doesn't mean I don't want to like throw on some country and sing along, do whatever. But like a lot of times I'm on long drives or I'm playing music in the house, and I want to like be right and be creative and stuff like that. Like I'll put on a lot of the classical stuff too, but there's this French or Italian pianist, and that's all I can offer right now. Ludovico or something weird.
I need you to like at least send me.
I'll send you a link to it once I get my phone back on. But it is like the most beautiful music.
I love it. Hey, I got beautiful. One for you. I got one for you. Look, hey, John Barry, the orchestra soundtrack to Dances with Wolves.
Ooh,
dude, hey, I'm telling you, the French horn, all these beautiful instruments. Hey, it is such good.
I'll absolutely will get into it, because I do listen to a lot of the soundtrack stuff too, like especially if there's like the Dances with Wolves was such a great movie too, but
it was.
It's not a great movie being a family, but it always makes me think it shouldn't. Legends of the Fall.
Ooh, that's a good one too.
Great movie. It's not how I want my family to turn out, but like there's part, like especially in the beginning, and they got the boys and they're taking care of each other. I'm like, man, like there's some moments in there like,
hey, a river runs through it. Hey, I used to watch that all the time, just by myself when I wanted to be alone. I love just the old classic type stuff where it's just like life was simple.
So when we went on vacation to Colorado, just Sarah and I, it was my 40th birthday. We're going to stay for a couple of weeks. And when we got there, and like, it's Colorado and it's beautiful in the mountains, I'm like, let's watch the Legends of the Fall. And then she had never seen a river run through it. So like immediately, like those movies like probably ignited us not to ever leave Colorado. Yes. Like at least, like, so we've been here, that was 5 years ago. Like it was a few days later, she's like looking up places to rent. Like,
let's go.
Yeah. So don't watch that. And it was the whole, like, you know, in the beginning of Legends of the Fall too, it's like, he talks about the Colonel and the old Native American man was doing the narrating. He's like, he said he wanted to lose his madness in the mountains. And so we lived there for many years, and the boys grew strong. And so like, that's, you know, that's the opening of the movie. Like when I got like, I'm like, man, we need to live here. I want the boys growing in like a relaxing, beautiful place, small towns. And
yes,
that's been really good.
Dude, I love hearing that. And hey, what are your boys' names real quick?
Lincoln and Lennox.
Lincoln and Lennox, those are big league names. Lincoln and Lennox, what's up? Hey man, what a joy. Hey, I had a blast talking with you today on the Baseball Forward podcast. Jason, do me a favor. I'd love to have you back sometime, talk more baseball, pick that brain of yours. Give us some words to roll out of this podcast episode, and we'll leave it at that.
Wow. I have not been short of words, and now I'm short of words. Put me on the spot like that. I think if we get something towards families, kids, it takes a long time. If baseball is something that you want to pursue and play at college, and you want to play pro ball, and that's the dream of chasing the big leagues, like, I think probably one of the best things that I said was the self-compassion and the patience. Like, you're gonna make so many.
Yes.
You know, my son, he kicked the ball the other day in the outfield, like, tie game, and there was a base hit, and he didn't take the right angle, and he grabs it with his glove, and he somehow, as he's bringing it up, he shoots it 20 feet deeper into the outfield. He runs to go get it, and in a panic, and he's a really good outfielder too, and he had this moment, and he goes to reach down to pick it up, and he kicks it another 20 feet to the fence. And the runner from first scored. He's the go-ahead run, and then the hitter goes to third. And, like, you know, I just gave him a hug after the game, and, like, on the car ride, we got to talking. He brought it up a couple hours later, and, like, I just started going through the stories of, like, you know, I've dropped 2 pop-ups in a game one time. I made back-to-back balls through my hole at first base, like ground balls through my legs at first base on back-to-back hitters. And, like, his uncle Justin, I remember one time he was a catcher, and we put him in left field, and, like, he lost the ball in the sun and it hit him in the head. Like, it just, you know.
Dude, hey, we have all been there. Yeah,
all
man.
the mistakes. So
it's not like you were trying to do it, you know?
Yeah, just be patient and enjoy it all. And yeah.
Jason Botts, Baseball Forward Podcast, episode 55. Thank you, my friend. Nice having a conversation with you. We'll see you soon.